you done now?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Back to the Future, the podcast. Season 8, we're kicking off this week. Excited to bring you some new episodes of the show. Today on the show, we have the legend himself, James Tolkan. But before we get to today's episode, wanted to start off this podcast with something special for everyone listening right now. As you know, last year, in 2020, we over here were excited to announce the release of Back from the Future, a celebration of the greatest time travel story ever told. That came out on hardcover on April 14th, 2020. But I have a special announcement for everyone right now. The people over at Mango Publishing were so excited with how the Back to the Future community came around and embraced the book Back from the Future. They wanted me to write some more for it and put it out in a paperback. That's right. I'm here to announce just in time for the holiday season on December the 2nd, 2021, you can get Back from the Future, the paperback edition, with a special added chapter called The Time Capsule. And the Time Capsule will have special interviews with people in the Back to the Future universe, galaxy, world. What do we call it? The canon? I don't know. Anyway, they're going to be in there. A special chapter called The Time Capsule will be added with some additional material to every single chapter. Really excited for this to come out on December the 2nd. That's 12 days before your man's birthday. That's a few days. It's 13 days before. 13 days, right? No. 23 days before Christmas. Hey, I'm a writer, not a mathematician. Nevertheless, you can go right now on Amazon.com, on Barnes & Noble, whatever your favorite app is or retail site to order books. You can get it right now. The pre-order links are in the description of this podcast. Go do it. Go do it right now and get the Back from the Future, a celebration of the greatest time travel story ever told. Go get the paperback right now in time for the holidays. It'll be the perfect gift for yourself or for your loved one. Go do it right now, please. I'd appreciate it. Also, while you're listening to this, give the podcast 5 stars. Do a little review on Apple Podcasts. Wherever you listen to podcasts, make sure you do that. And now, without further ado, here is Mr. James Tolkan on Back to the Future, the podcast.
Hi, everybody. This is Bob Gale, co-creator of Back to the Future, and you're listening to Brad Gilmore.
Oh, Brad, what have you done now?
Doc! Okay, relax, Doc. It's me. It's Martin.
No, it can't be. Just sent you back to the future.
Yeah. Oh, I know he did send me back to the future, but I'm back. I'm back from the future.
Great Scott.
Wait a minute, Doc. Are you telling me that you built a time machine? Out of a DeLorean?
The way I see it, if you're gonna build a time machine into a car, why not do it with some style?
Whoa, this is heavy.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to Back to the Future, the podcast, the only podcast looking back in time at the greatest film trilogy of all time, Back to the Future. I'm your friend in time, Brad Gilmore. Here we are embarking on season 8 of the podcast, working on it, and I'm excited. I'm excited for everybody to be hearing everything I've been working on and the people that I've talked to. This one is awesome. We're talking to Principal Strickland himself. Yes, Vice Principal Strickland, I should say. We're talking to James Tolkan. Yes, James Tolkan is joining me on the show today to discuss his incredible career, his dealings with Back to the Future. How was it reshooting those 6 weeks after Eric Stoltz exited the project and Michael J. Fox was brought in? Was he hesitant about taking the sequels and much, much more? I wanted to tell quickly before we go into the interview how this came to be, because I love how this happened. And I just have to share the story with somebody. I said, who better than the Pinhead? So I was trying to figure out what I was going to do for this season of the podcast. James Tolkan's been on my list since 2015 to get on the show. Did a lot of research, internet research. I was DMing people I didn't even know, going on Facebook, talking to different people, and I found a group. I won't say who they are because I don't want them to get blown up with messages, I should say. And I started reaching out to them, and they said, hey, I don't know, but here's an address that I know he takes fan mail at. I said, okay. So I wrote James a handwritten note, I don't know, several months ago, and I didn't hear anything back. Then I talked to another castmate from Back to the Future. I reached out to them, and they said, I'll talk to James. And then they sent back correspondence saying his wife said, we got your letter, be in touch. I said, okay, cool. Well, months and months and months go by. I don't hear anything. And a couple weeks ago, I'm doing this in June, at the end of June, or July right now, I'm sorry, end of July. A couple weeks go by. I said, you know what? I'm going to send another handwritten note. So I found a card stock, stationery type stuff. I wrote James a 2-line note, and I left my number at the end of it. Again, I don't hear anything. I'm watching, I think it was game 4 of the NBA Finals. It's starting. I'm watching Giannis. I'm watching Chris Paul. Phone goes off. It's a number I don't recognize. Rarely do I answer these. But I had my phone in my hand, so I just said, hello. And I hear, yeah, Brad? I was like, yes, speaking. And they go, Brad, this is Jim. And I said, oh, okay. Hey, Jim. I had no idea who was on the other line. Then he goes, it's Jim Tolkan. I said, Jim Tolkan? Hey, how are you doing, sir? And he's like, I'm great. I got your letter, ready to do the interview. When do you want to do it? And I'm like, whenever. He said, call me Monday. So I called him Monday. He said, can we do it tonight? I said, yeah, let's do it. So I let go of my radio responsibilities as soon as I got off the air, gave him a call. Actually, he called me 2 minutes before the interview time, and you're about to hear the conversation that I had with the awesome legend himself, Mr. James Tolkan, otherwise known as the Vice Principal Strickland from Back to the Future, and Marshall Strickland from Back to the Future Part 3. Here we go. Check it out. And he joins me now. The absolute legend himself is on the line, Mr. James Tolkan. Mr. Tolkan, how you doing, sir?
Well, I'm doing great. I'm pleased to be speaking with you, Brad, finally.
I am so thrilled that I had this opportunity. It's something that I've really wanted to do for a long time, to be able to...
Well, here we are.
Well,
here we are. Great. Wonderful.
Here we are. Great. Wonderful. Well, again, we'll start right now with this. I called you a legend, and you absolutely are. You've had some iconic roles from some of the most iconic movies of all time. Can we just start into your journey as an actor? Where did it first start for you? Were you on the stage, before the screen? Kind of what was your origin story?
Well, after I got out of the Navy, I went back to school, and I went to Coe College in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and there I got interested in acting. And after 2 years at Coe, and I had a lot of affirmation about what I was doing, I transferred to the University of Iowa, which had a big theater department. And at Iowa, I learned. They said if you're serious about being an actor, you got to go to New York and study with either Lee Strasberg or Stella Adler. So I wanted to study with Stella Adler at that time. So in 1956, I got in a Greyhound bus out of Iowa City. I had $75 in my pocket. I didn't know a soul in New York, and I got on that Greyhound bus to go to New York to be an actor. Oh my God! I didn't know what I was getting into. When I arrived in New York, I was scared to death, and I had to find someplace to live, and I did that, and my money ran out, and I had to get. After 6 years of college, I'm working as a busboy on Central Park South, and it was very challenging at first, but it was really the greatest time of my life because it was full of promise and possibilities. And I'm so glad I left that. I felt, even though I had a lot of life experience, when I got to New York, I felt like I was a relative hick, and I had so much to learn, and I was challenged, and it was so great. It was just so great. My first apartment in New York, I finally found a place you could get a cold water flat back then. It was a fifth floor walk up, 3 rooms, steam, heat, and hot water, and my rent was $25.13 a month, which was just perfect. And yeah, right. And so I had an interview with Stella Adler, and I had enough money to get started with her, and it was just the best time in my life because of just it was just like so challenging, so wonderful, and as I said before, the possibilities were there. So anyway, that was my first start in New York City, and it's been great.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
no, I mean, continue. I don't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm talking a lot now. I just want to say that my first I just talked about my first little apartment in New York for $25.13, and when I left New York, when I decided to live up here, Lake Placid, and I'm out of the business. I was living in a beautiful penthouse in Tribeca. So I feel like I'm a success. It's one some way or another I'm a success. But it's been so great. I've endured everything. I've experienced so many things, positive, negative, and I'm here and now I'm enjoying the good life now, and I feel strong because I made it all through all that.
Well,
As I say, the good times and the bad times.
The good and bad is how you have to take it through life. Obviously, every industry is going to have its challenges. For you, though, like you said, your bank account ran out of money at some point. You're in this apartment. When for you? Because you had several credits dating back to the early 1960s. When did you feel like you had made it as an actor? Was there a particular role? Was there a particular film where you said, "Okay, now I feel like I've made this"?
Oh well, I really had some great experiences. At one point, I replaced Robert Duvall in Arthur Miller's play *A View from the Bridge*, and that was very important for me. I feel like that was really special. And right after that, I auditioned for Arthur Penn to understudy Robert Duvall in *Wait Until Dark*, and that was on Broadway with Lee Remick, and it was a big production. And after 2 weeks, the playing after New York, after *Wait Until Dark* opened in New York, 2 weeks, Robert Duvall broke his hip in a riding accident, and suddenly I was on, and it went beautifully, and they cast me in the role, the lead, the part of Harry Roth, the killer, in *Wait Until Dark*, and I played that part for 2 years, and I kind of felt that was an important event. There have been others, but that was kind of the first one.
Obviously Robert Duvall, one of the greatest actors of all time, and to be able to work with him as the understudy, and then go on to replace him, that had to have been almost mind blowing for you at the time, huh?
No, not really. At the time, I felt that hey, I'm just as good, but,
as you should.
but that was just he's so special. He's so great.
Yeah, one of the most incredible actors, like I said. Now, going into film, were you nervous of trying to make that transition? There have been a lot of theater actors trying to, go into film and television, some more successful than others. Did you find that was going to be, I guess when you were still on stage, did you think that was going to be the route you would take?
No, I always wanted to be in movies, but I was a stage actor, and that's where all my experience was. And I worked for years in the theater in New York, doing regional theater all over the country. And I was most at home with the boards under my feet, if you understand what I mean. And I was quite nervous about the transition because it's a totally different thing. And the first couple of things, I did small parts in movies, I was very nervous. But I had the privilege of working in 1973 with Sidney Lumet in Reciprocal, and that was a special. I had not a big part, but a memorable part in that. And when I finished that, he told me next time it'll be something much more. And in 1979, I think it was, we did Prince of the City, and that was special. When you work with Sidney Lumet, you're spoiled for every other movie director because he rehearses 3 weeks in advance. So when you get on the set and you start shooting, everybody knows their job. He likes to get everything in one take, and he often does. And you go home every day at 4:30, and he comes in ahead of schedule, saves a lot of money. But he's just so wonderful with actors. He just spoils you for everyone else. But then let's see. Oh yeah, I got a call from Robert Zemeckis when I was doing Glenn Ross, the David Mamet play on Broadway, and that was a very special experience. But I got a call from Mamet, and he asked me to come and do Back to the Future. I didn't know about Back to the Future. I didn't know who he was. And I said, I've always said I'm never going to Hollywood until they send for me. And I figured this is my chance. So I found out that I was the only actor in Back to the Future who did not audition, which I think he must have seen me in something and thought I was okay. So he hired me, and I went out to do Back to the Future. Then I did Top Gun. I did all kinds of stuff, television, several movies, and I had a good time out there. I lived 15 minutes from the beach. Any day I wasn't working, to get on my bike, go for a swim, play tennis near the ocean, and living the good life, you know. and yeah, right. And at a certain point, I had enough of that, and I decided I was going to retire. But even in retirement, I did a lot of work. I don't know if you saw anything with Timothy Hutton when we did a thing about in what was it? In Canada. I'm trying to think of the name of the show. We did it for 2 years, and that was after I was supposed to have been retired. So, and then things come up. Things still come up, you know.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're obviously still a fixture. We saw you recently, even on the Discovery Channel, for their Expedition Back to the Future. One quick thing though, before I ask you about Back to the Future, was going from the stage to the screen. When you're a live theater actor, you have that audience. You have that instant feedback. You can feel if a scene's working, feel if your line delivery is working, because the crowd's going to give you that feedback. When you're on the set, you're not getting that. How did you adapt to that?
You just hope it's working, and that's all. You know, because you do not have that. You don't have that instant response, audience response. But you get it's so dependent on the director. The director can make it really easy for you when you're doing film, or he can make it kind of difficult, depending. And I did some TV out there. I don't like doing TV. I did one good show at TV I really liked, with Pierce Brosnan.
The Remington Steele?
Yeah, Remington Steele. I liked what I did there, but I did a lot of junk too. yeah, absolutely.
Well, to ask you about Back to the Future, you brought up an interesting fact that you didn't audition for the film. There's a legendary story of there was a different Marty McFly at first that was portrayed by Eric Stoltz. Michael J. Fox then replaced him. Did you find that difficult to have to shoot all of your scenes over again?
No, I found it easier because everything was rewritten and it was tighter writing and it was better. So I thought it was a big improvement. And once Michael J. Fox showed up, he was so graceful and easy. It was a different show.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously brought a levity to it. I think that from what I read, that is really what made all the writing click, was his reactions to his surroundings. You playing Vice Principal Strickland, which is such a famous role for yourself. Obviously, I'm sure that people come up to you all the time and say, "Call me a slacker," and things.
That is correct. And I still get tons of fan mail, and from all over the world, believe it or not. That I 2 or 3 times a year I have to hire somebody to answer these letters. But yeah, it's been amazing because Strickland was not that big a role, but it made an impression. What can I say?
Well, I think when you look at the film and outside of the main roles of Biff, Marty, Lorraine, Doc,
Yeah,
and George, Principal Strickland, Vice Principal Strickland is the most iconic of those roles, and I think the most important character because in all the films, you play a pivotal role in how the story ends up playing out, whether it be taking of the almanac or what have you. Who did you think that guy was, Strickland, when you read the sides for the character?
Who did I think it was?
Yeah,
Well,
did you base it on anybody?
I, I just I based it on a certain character element in myself.
So you kind of identified maybe with, I don't know, some of it, because I'm sure coming from the military, as you did, you were used to a certain amount of structure, and that seems to be what Strickland's main thing was. Was he wanted structure and order? Did you have to tap into any of that?
You're absolutely correct. That's right.
You mentioned though that after the film came out, obviously it was massive, the biggest film in 1985. You went on to do Top Gun after that with Tom Cruise, who's arguably still the biggest movie star in the world.
Yes.
And then you had these two massive movies back to back. Did you think that was going to be how it kept going? That you were just going to be in these massive blockbusters year after year?
No, I thought, well, hey, it's Hollywood. Anything could happen. So I should have got home after those two movies, but I stayed out for another maybe 8 or 9 years, and I stayed busy, and I enjoyed it out there. But I knew my time in Hollywood was limited; that it was not the place for me. And the friend of mine once said, when you start to hate the palm trees, it's time to go home.
That's the greatest quote I think I've ever heard about California. When you start to hate the palm trees, it's time to go to Lake Placid. Let me ask you this: when they did these sequels for Back to the Future and they gave you the call, was there any apprehension about joining back up and doing that again?
Oh, and none of it was a privilege each time, because to work with these guys, Bob Zemeckis, Bob Gale. They're so special. Their writing was so good, and they were so wonderful to work with. It was an honor and a pleasure.
And I guess you probably enjoyed getting to do kind of a variant of the character in the third film, playing the Marshal in the Old West. Was that a fun time as well?
Yes, that was great. I just, I thought it was so much fun, and to be Marshal Strickland, the granddaddy of all these other guys. Sure, it was great.
You mentioned, and I really want to appreciate your time. We're about wrapped up here, but I just wanted to say, so you mentioned you have all these fan letters, and I'm a fan of yours. I've been a fan of yours the entirety of my life. I've quoted you and referenced you umpteenth times, so it's almost a otherworldly experience to have a privilege to share some time with you. But have you had a specific fan interaction over the years that was really special to me, or was there really just special to you, or was there just too many to count?
As far as fans are concerned,
yeah,
it's basically Top Gun and Back to the Future. Those are the two movies. Although I must say, when I do these Comic Cons, people come up with stuff that I forgot I'd done that they want me to sign. Sometimes it's 12 or 15 items I have to sign. From one, it amazes me constantly. In many ways, I wish they would spend their money more smartly, but if that's important to them, that's fine.
My final question for you, sir, is you've had an incredible career. Obviously, you're now living the better side of life, being able to enjoy the fruits of your labor. To all living the good life, right?
Yeah, that's it.
To all the aspiring, though, actors who want to have a similar career for yours, to work for several decades on the stage and screen, what would be the biggest piece of advice you could give them?
It's so difficult because there are no rules. There are no rules about how to go about it. People go about it in different ways. What works for one actor is not going to work for another. It's so I can't really put anything into a scheme of how to go about it. It's just you got to dive in and be committed and just commit yourself that you want to do this and that you're going to do this. That's all I can say.
Well, I think that's tremendous advice, sir, and I really do, again, appreciate your time here spending with me and just giving me a little bit of insight on some of your most famous roles and how you got to the position you are today, living the good life that is the legendary James Tolkan. James, I appreciate you so much, sir.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Brad. Thank you so much.
All right, and you know what? It wouldn't be an interview if could you call me a slacker one time?
Brad, you're a slacker, Brad.
That is the legendary James Tolkan. James, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
And there you have it. There you have it. The man himself, James Tolkan, on Back to the Future, the podcast. Still can't believe that I got it in the bag, 90 years of age, and what an absolute treat. That is all we have for you today. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. More episodes of Season 8 of Back to the Future, the podcast, are on the way. If you haven't checked out our back library, Seasons 1 through 7, incredible stuff with some of the biggest and best in the world of Hill Valley. Until next time, I'm your friend in time, Brad Gilmore, and I will see you in the future.